You can live a life full of love and light if you just let the Spirit guide you. It's the remedy where you'll find peace, but you must let the Spirit guide you.
Who made y'all priests?
What's up, world? This is Fafore.
What's going on, good people? This is Oseun. Welcome back to the Who Made Y'all Priest podcast, where we talk about our spiritual journeys, our everyday life experiences, and the issues of the time from the perspective of two people who just happen to be priests. Fafore, what's going on, man?
Man, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I appreciate all the episodes that we have with guests, but when we have those episodes where it's just me and you, I feel like we going back to our roots, man. So I'm excited. I'm feeling good, man. How you doing?
That's what's up, man. You know, I enjoy these episodes that we do by ourselves as well. But I hear that there's a congratulations that is in need. I heard you became a minister. You became minister. Our Fafore, man. Tell us a little bit about that, man. How'd that
Yes, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I want to announce to the world that I am now an ordained minister. So for here on out, I'm going to be known as the Honorable Minister Awo Fafore Fayemi.
go?
Put some respect on my name.
Right. Right. And just so y'all know, I'm his elder in that sense also. I've been an ordained minister since 2021. He like 2 years late. You know, I'm used to telling Fafore, hey man, you need to go and get on this. And he like, all right, man, yeah, I'm gonna get on it. And then 2 years later, I'm telling him about it again. And he like, oh yeah, man, let me do that right quick. Let me do that right now. So he a complete 2 years behind right now, man. So for all of y'all out there that want to get that's trying to tie the knot, jump the broom, put in your nuptials, yeah, man, y'all hit us up, man. We performing marriages now.
Right. And not just that, you know what I'm saying? If you or a loved one meets their untimely demise and you want us to show up and, give them their last rites and, celebrate their life and send them off into, the other side in style, man, just hit us up, man. We'll go ahead and do our thing.
Oh, shit.
That's hilarious. So just so y'all know, so starting next episode, that's literally gonna be my title. The Honorable
You gonna put
Minister.
that down?
Absolutely.
All right.
Like if I knew how to actually after I said it, miraculously make it change at the bottom to say that, then I would have done it. But I think, I would probably have to stop the video and start over. So that's a lot.
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah, the Honorable Minister Abo Fafore Fayemi.
That sounds dope, though.
It does. It does. Puts me in the mindset of Farrakhan.
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to get you some followers now, and we're gonna have to get you some bodyguards. We're gonna have to get you some bodyguards. We're gonna have to get you a whole bunch of followers so you have somebody to talk to, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna need an armor bearer like they have in church.
Right.
We need that. So if anybody is interested in being my armor bearer, please comment below on the video, or actually, send an email to wmyp@yahoo.com. Send your resume. If you are trained in any martial arts or anything like that, send a little recording so we can see what your hands looking like. Because I don't want an armor bearer who get beat up. So we got to know that you got it like that. So go ahead and send that to us.
Yeah, man, send that in. So what we got for the people today, man?
Well, before we go into the episode for today, we actually have another treat. We have another Ori story. So check out Ifa Kimi and the Ori story, and then we'll come back to discuss it at the end.
Coming in on a Wednesday change to put something on your brain. What's up, y'all? It's Ifa Kimi with IE Lowdown Garden Botanica, and we back. We're back We back with an Ori story. We back with an Ori story. We back with an Ori story. Are y'all ready for this Ori story? So this Ori story is about the king and the juju tree. And it comes from southern Nigeria. So let's get right into it. Udo Udon was a famous king who lived in Etam, which was an inland town and doesn't have a river. The king and his wife used to wash at the spring behind their house. And King Udo had a daughter, and he was very fond of her. He looked after her very carefully, and she grew into a beautiful young woman. But for a while, the king had been absent from his home, and he had not been to the spring in over 2 years. And when he went to this old place to wash, he found the juju tree had grown all over the spring, and it was impossible for him to wash as he normally would. The king then called for 50 of his young men to bring their machetes and cut down the tree. The young men started cutting the tree, but it had no effect. Just as they made a cut in the tree, it closed back up. So after working all day, they found they made no progress. When they returned at night, they told the king that they had been unable to destroy the tree. Of course, this made the king very angry when he heard this. He went to the spring the following morning and bringing his own machete. The juju tree saw this, and the king had came with his own machete and started cutting at the tree. And the juju tree caused a splinter of wood to go in the king's eye. This caused the king so much pain. He threw down his machete and went back to his house. The pain of the splinter got worse, and he couldn't eat or sleep for 3 days. The king then sent for his witchmen and told them to cast to find out why he was in so much pain. And when they cast it, they determined that the reason he was in so much pain was because he tried to destroy the juju tree. They also told him that he must sacrifice 7 baskets of flies, a white goat, a white chicken, a piece of cloth, and he must sacrifice all of this in order to satisfy the juju tree. The king gathered all of these offerings, and the witchmen tried many herbal lotions to heal his eye, but it only got worse. The king then dismissed the witches and requested a new group of witches. And when they arrived, they told the king that although they couldn't do anything to relieve his pain, they only knew one man that could cure him. So the king told them to send for this man at once. This man arrived the next day. The spirit man said to the king, "Before I do anything to your eye, what will you give me?" King Udo replied, "I will give you half of my town with the people in it, also 7 cows and money." But the spirit man refused to accept the king's offer. The king was in so much pain, he said to the spirit man, "Name your price and I'll pay you." So the spirit man said, "The only thing I am willing to accept as payment is your daughter." The king cried when he heard this, and he told the man to go away, as he would rather die than to give his daughter away. That night, the pain was much worse than before, and some of his men pleaded with him to take this offer and give his daughter to the spirit man, and told him when he got well, he can always have another daughter. But if he died, he would lose everything. The king then sent for the spirit man again, and he came back very quickly. And with great grief, the king gave his daughter to the spirit man. The spirit man then went into a bush and collected some leaves, which he soaked in water and beat up and smashed. The juice made from the bush was poured into the king's eye, and told him when he washes his face in the morning, he will be able to see what was troubling him and causing him so much pain in his eye. The king tried to persuade the man to stay the night, but the man refused and departed the same night for the spirit land, taking the king's daughter with him. Before the sun rose, the king woke up, washed his face, and found the small splinter from the juju tree that had been troubling him so much. It dropped out of his eye, and the pain disappeared, and he was quite well again. And when the king came to his proper senses, he realized that he had just sacrificed his daughter for one of his eyes. So he ordered there should be a general mourning throughout the kingdom for 3 years. And for the first 2 years of mourning, the king's daughter was put in a fatty house by the spirit man and was getting fed every day. But one day, a skull who was in the house spoke to her and told her not to eat, as they were fatting her up, not for marriage, but to eat her. She then started giving the skull all of her food, and she decided to live on chalk. Towards the end of the 3rd year, the spirit man brought some of his friends to see the king's daughter, and he told them that he would kill her the next day and they would have a good feast off of her. And when she woke up the next morning, the spirit man brought her food as usual, but the skull who wanted to save her life heard what the spirit man and his friends said. So he called her over and he told her what was going to happen later that day. So she handed the food to the skull, and he said, when the spirit man goes into the woods with his friends to prepare for the feast, you must run back to your father. The skull then gave her some medicine which would make her strong for the journey, and also gave her direction to the road, telling her that there were 2 roads, but when she came to the parting of the ways, she was to drop some of the medicine on the ground, and the 2 roads would become one. He then told her to leave by the back door and go through the woods until she came to the end of town. She would then find the road and if she met people on this road, she was to pass them in silence. If she saluted them, they would know that she was a stranger in the spirit world and might kill her. She was also not to turn around if anyone called to her, and to continue to go straight until she reached her father's kingdom. The daughter thanked the skull for his kind advice and set off on her journey. And when she reached the end of town and found the road, she ran for 3 hours and arrived at the branch of the 2 roads. And she dropped the medicine as she was instructed, and the 2 roads immediately became one. So she went straight on and never saluted anyone, turned back, although several people called to her. About this time, the spirit man had returned back from the woods, and he went into the house only to find the king's daughter missing. So he asked the skull, where was she? And he replied, she had gone out through the back door, but I don't know where she went after that. The spirit man, being who he is, guessed that she went back to her father. So he followed her as soon as he could, and he was shouting her name the entire time. And the girl heard his voice. She ran as fast as she could, and she finally reached her father's kingdom and told him to take a cow, a pig, a sheep, a goat, a dog, a chicken, and 7 eggs, and cut them into 7 pieces as a sacrifice to the spirit man, and leave them on the road so that he would not enter the kingdom. The king did this immediately when he heard his daughter say this, and made the sacrifice. And when the spirit man saw this sacrifice on the road, he sat down at once and began to eat. When he satisfied his appetite, he packed up the remainder and returned to the spirit land, not troubling the king's daughter anymore. And when the king saw the danger was over, he beat his drum and declared the future. When people died and went to the spirit land, they could not come to earth again as spirits to cure sick people. And that's the end of today's Ori story.
All right, we back. Again, shout out to Ifa Kimi on that Ori story. We appreciate it. So Oseun, that Ori story, the thing that I liked about the story the most, and it's something that you and I talk about a lot, it's about sacrifice. So in the story, it talked about there were 2 sacrifices that were made. Obviously, the initial one that came about in the sacrifice from the standpoint of having to give up his daughter. Mm-hmm. And then the other one at the end in regards to the sacrifice or the offering at the end, so that the spiritual man or whatever, I can't remember what they call him, wouldn't cause any harm. Which, while I'm listening to that part, I'm thinking like, man, he a whole king. He didn't want to have his army out there. But, that wouldn't be the purpose of the story. Right. So anyway, after every story, every Pataki, part of that is about sacrifice, right? There's always a sacrifice that needs to be made. And that could be from the standpoint of the offering or the ebo, the animal sacrifice, or a literal sacrifice of something that you have to change, something that you have to do or stop doing. The thing about the sacrifice of him having to give up his daughter in order for him to be healed from the pain in his eye, like that's a big deal, right? Like that's a huge sacrifice to have to make. Usually when you're in your spaces where you're going through things, right? You're going through issues. The sacrifice that you're going to have to make is going to be big. It's not going to be something that you're going to jump to and be like, oh yeah, I can do that easy. It's going to be an actual sacrifice. It's going to be something that you have to give up that you don't want to give up. It's going to be something that you have to do that you might not necessarily feel like you want to do. But the thing that is standing between us and abundance, joy, prosperity, good health, all the good things is making that sacrifice, right? So either you can make the sacrifice or not. That's your choice. But understand, by not making the sacrifice, you won't actually receive the blessings that you want to receive, or the blessings that are waiting for you, the blessings that are yours on the other side of that sacrifice. So, Oseun, what did you think about the story?
I kind of came at it from a different angle, I think. I saw the king as weak. I saw a person's willingness to sacrifice their own daughter to avoid being uncomfortable or to avoid pain. I feel like that was a sacrifice that I would not have made. If I'm remembering right, I think there was an offering that he was supposed to make first before it got to him having to sacrifice his daughter. But that was also this part of him trying to be destructive of nature, and him eventually getting to the part where. So that's what I took from it, is him being destructive of nature, and him going against the wisdom of nature and suffering pain as a result, and then him being willing to sacrifice his own daughter, to give up his own daughter so that he could avoid the consequences of his own actions. So I saw the king as weak, but I saw the king as a representative of human nature as we see it today, as wanting to be able to go against the wisdom of nature and not suffer the consequences of it, or when we suffer the consequences of it, being willing to sacrifice our fellow people to be able to make an attempt to avoid that. So that's kind of what I got out of the story. It was a good story, nevertheless, as our Luo tells us. All of these different myths and stories always have more than one meaning, more than two meanings. So yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got from it.
Absolutely. You mentioned the wisdom of nature. That sounds like a good idea for another episode in the future. Cause man, we can go in on that. So
I can see your wheels turning in your mind, like man, we can keep talking about that, man. But yeah, man.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, we can go down that rabbit hole, but I'm like, man, I think we need a whole episode to talk about that.
Right.
So let's hop into today's episode. So what we got going on for today?
So I think we wanted to talk to the people about dogma and are we really spiritual? Are we really spiritual? And is the way that we use the term dogma from its original sense, or is it something that we've come up with to kind of denigrate people who seek to follow a different path? So usually, or what we've been taught as priests when we come across words like this, is to get into the etymology of the term, get into understanding the truth of the actual word. So let's do that with the term dogma. So originally, dogma came into the English language in the 1600s, and it meant simply a philosophical tenet. That's the only thing it meant. Dogma meant a philosophical tenet, and it came from a Greek word that meant something that someone thinks is true. That's all it meant. So in the original sense, dogma meant a philosophical tenet or concept that someone thought was true. You and I both come from the lodge, and we both, I don't know if you finished it, I know I didn't. We both started to read Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike in the lodge. And even in that sense, the term dogma meant the philosophical tenets or the philosophical teachings and morals of Christianity. So now the question is does Ifa have dogma? Well, from the original definition of the term, of course it does, because we have to think about concepts like rebirth or reincarnation, metempsychosis, whatever you want to call it. That's something that we have to believe is true and call it a philosophical concept or a philosophical tenet. But the way we use the term dogma today, at least in Ifa and in our colloquial speech, we use the term dogma or dogmatic when we want to denigrate someone for having the discipline to follow a specific road. And when other people don't want to follow that, they say you're being dogmatic about it. I had told you not long ago that I had started to reread Odu Ifa and his ethical teachings from Maulana Karenga. And I think he does a great job of showing that there are certain philosophical tenets that apply to us all, even those that are not in our Odu, because for some reason we've come to the belief that the only things that apply to you are the things that are in your Odu. And I vehemently disagree with that, because there has to be some ethical teachings. There has to be some some morals outside of your Odu that you must follow, because if there was not, there would be no concepts like Iwapele or Iwarere. There would be no concept of the true human being that Ifa calls the Omoluwabi. There would be no concepts like that if there were no morals to follow. What is a good person? What is good character? What is gentle character? Ifa describes those things to us, and not necessarily in our individual Odus. There's also the concept of the good position. How do we get to the good position without following morals, without following ethics? I don't think we can get to that point. So again, dogma in its original sense simply meant a philosophical tenet that someone believes is true. So what you think about dogma, or what are your thoughts about dogma or being dogmatic?
The thing that comes to my mind anytime I hear the term dogma or dogmatic, I go back to college and this religion class that I took, and there was a professor that I think he taught the class very well. And the reason why I say he taught the class very well, because it was almost impossible to understand what his own beliefs were. Like, you couldn't tell if he was a Christian or Buddhist, Muslim, whatever. You couldn't tell based upon the way that he taught it. It's like he is presenting the information as presented or as it is, without having any input on its validity, right? So I loved it. But one of the things he talked about was dogma or being dogmatic. And he said dogma was something that you believed, or dogma was believing in something based upon tradition and not upon actual research and study from a personal standpoint. So my grandmother was a Christian, my mother was a Christian, and now I'm a Christian. My great grandmother was a EFI practitioner, and then it followed down the line. All my teaching was just, or all my knowledge was what I was told. I haven't researched anything. I haven't studied anything. It's like blind faith.
Mm.
So when I got to Ifa and I saw how, I'm going to say, logical Ifa was, that's what really attracted me, right, to Ifa. That I've never been called dogmatic more times in my life than being inside of the tradition by EFI practitioners. Like, if I had $1 for every time that I was called dogmatic for my plant-based lifestyle, I'd be rich. Now, the thing is that nobody else in my family that I knew, I didn't even know what veganism was right up until 34 years old. At 34, a friend of mine, maybe 33, somewhere around there, started talking about that. I didn't grow up like that. I didn't grow up eating nothing but fruits and vegetables and beans and things of that nature. But when I got the information, I studied it for myself, and it was intriguing enough for me to actually apply. Now, if all things were equal, I would prefer a cheeseburger over chickpeas. If all things were equal, I would prefer French fries over kale. But based upon the information I received, and then when I tried it out, and then as I go to a doctor, holistic doctor, side by side, and working with them for over 3 years, I'm like, yeah, all the information points to this is the way to be. My mom coming off of her medications, other stories that I know from people personally, not things that I saw on YouTube or things that I Googled, but from people that I knew personally, changes they were seeing in their life. I'm like, yo, yeah, this is legit. So what I come to realize in my 10 years of being plant-based or vegan, I know more about that diet than people who have been eating however they've been eating for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Because that's not something that we study. It was passed down to us and we just went with that, you know. And I have a problem, for the lack of a better word, right? I mean, I'm for everybody doing whatever they want to. So maybe a problem is a little bit hyperbolic. I'll say it like this. I think everyone should question everything that they do to truly gain an understanding. Because if I ask you why you eat the way you do, and your ancestors is because my ancestors did, then you lost all validity with me. Because I can list off without even knowing your ancestors specifically, just understanding what race you are, what part of the country you lived in. I can list a whole gang of things that your ancestors did that you wouldn't do at all. And I can list a whole bunch of things that your ancestors did that you refuse to do. So, like you said, man, when people say dogma, really the D word that they're looking for is discipline. But their ego won't allow them to say, man, you have the discipline to eat the way you eat. Mm-hmm. You have the discipline to, work as hard as you work, or you have the discipline to study, as much as you study. Whatever that thing that somebody is doing that you want to call them dogmatic for, I think the word that you're really looking for is discipline.
Check out the shirt. Stated. Check out the shirt, man. What does it say? You can see it?
It says dogmatic, but I can't read the part after the word's too low. So
let me tell you what it says. It says, what you call me for doing what you should, but don't have the discipline to do so.
Ashe.
So, and this shirt was made courtesy of my wife. Y'all check out Earth and Water Clothing Designs. Y'all check out. But yeah, this is what you and I have talked about on several occasions about this, like you call it, the D word, this dogma, this dogmatic word. And you're exactly right. That's what it is discipline. It's discipline. But if you are the sign that's calling people out for going against the wisdom of nature. And people don't want to be called out like that. Because if you stick out like that, and if you get the teaching that veganism or the plant-based lifestyle is the wisdom of nature, and how can you claim to practice Ifa and not walk in the wisdom of nature is a contradiction, then those types of words have to be used. They have to be used. It's the same way that Christian missionaries talk to Africans or about Africans, about the things that they were doing, calling it fetishism, calling it animism, calling it all of these different things, to calling it devil worship, calling it all these different things to denigrate the people that were practicing the things that they wanted to practice. So yeah, I definitely agree with the that definition of dogma. So the way that you defined dogma, is that what you think dogma is?
So it's a philosophical question. So I would say dogma is what the etymology says it is, or any word for that matter. But then we get to using it however we want to. And then that then becomes the definition, because definitions change over time. The etymology is what it is. Right? The definition can change based upon how we use it. If we all decide to start calling dogma a style of dress 10 years down the line, that's what the definition gonna say in the dictionary. What I'm saying when we talk about the word dogma is the way people are using it, and I just want to address the way people are using it, where it's being used as kind of almost like an ignorant, blind faith, way of doing things, a way of thinking with no flexibility.
Mm-hmm. That's the
Right?
main thing. That's the main thing. The no flexibility when
Right.
you are strict and disciplined in what you're doing. That's what the way that dogmatic is being used now is that part. Is the no flexibility part that people are
Right.
referring to.
Right. But let's stick with the whole me being plant-based. Here's the funny part. People that ate ribs with me never called me dogmatic. They always called me disciplined because they remember when I was eating ribs. You know what I'm saying? They was with me at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? The people, or certain people, only in the spiritual community, mind you, who met me after that, with me being plant-based, now is dogmatic because they don't see the change. They didn't see how I went from here to there. They just see where I am now, right? But I almost don't want to say that, but I'm gonna say it. It's usually never the healthy people who call me dogmatic, right? It's people who visually I can look at and say, ooh, your liver is not functioning like it's supposed to be functioning. Like, ooh, them kidneys is, you know what I'm saying? So forth and so on, right? It's just like rich people who see somebody who's trying to get rich, who is disciplined on their path or their pursuit to that level of achievement. Those rich people don't call those people dogmatic. The people who will call you dogmatic is the people who don't have the same focus as you, who want you to go to the club, who want you to play video games, who want you to come hang out, and you like, nah, I'm over here, I'm doing this, right? Those are the people who usually have those issues. People who are already there, like, I feel you.
Right. So here's my question now. See, and this is kind of going. This is still in keeping with what we're talking about, but this is something that you and I have talked about also personally. Is the term that would be used in that case when you are not strictly disciplined and you start to do other things is moderation. And we find in the O Dewey Fi what moderation is. See, this was one of the problems that I started to have with Christians, not with Christianity, but with Christians. Once I started to come out of Christianity, is that we want to define words the way that we want to.
Mm-hmm.
Why not allow the system that we claim to believe in, that we claim to follow, to define these words for us? Because the way we define moderation is the exact opposite of the way that moderation is defined in the ODE 5.
Absolutely.
And see, and this is gonna go all the way back to abortion and all of these different things that that for some reason we don't see as immoral or an abomination because it's somehow connected to Christianity in some type of way, but not allowing the actual system to define the words inside the system itself. We are no better than Christians, man. This picking and choosing of what we're going to follow and what we're not going to follow is no better than Christianity. It's no better than Christianity. Even Jesus, when Jesus summed up all of the Mosaic laws in the two laws, love thy neighbor, and what's the other one? Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Orumila seemed to summarize all of the ethics and the moral teachings in the Odu Ifa in Irosu Iwori when he talks about the good position. It's a summary, it's a summary, it's a summation. It's not him making an attempt to tell you that this is all you have to do. No, this is the foundation of it, which is the same thing that Jesus was talking about, that these two laws, upon these two laws, the entire law is built upon. So what do you think about that, about the term moderation when it comes to going against dogma?
So, here's the thing, right? About what I think in moderation. So my Odu speaks a lot about moderation. And in trying to understand what moderation is, a lot of people would say moderation was avoiding excess, right? So my thing is, or excessiveness. Well, if we don't know where we're supposed to be, how do we know what is excessive? So first you got to understand that, right? So people would say to me, again, I'm going to stick with my diet, and I'm going to stick with that for a couple of reasons. My natal chart speaks a lot about this. I'm a Virgo sun. I have a Virgo stellium, right? I have Virgo in the 10th house. So there's a lot of things that's associated with where I am and me really promoting health and things of health. Now, I talk about more than just the diet aspect of it, but until we get that part, then I can't go further than that, right? So I also don't use deodorant. I use key lime or a salt stick. You know what I'm saying? But if you eat ribs and you use a salt stick, you're gonna be musty. So I can't tell you to use that. You know what I'm saying? I don't use regular lotions. You know what I'm saying? I ain't using Jergens and things of that nature, right? Putting things on the skin. Because your skin is your largest organ. I don't use Crest. And Crest is actually the only toothpaste that I can even remember at this point. But I don't use those types of toothpaste, right? I use toothpaste with all natural ingredients. But again, if you're just gonna eat ribs, I can't even get into you to talking about all those things. I use shungite crystals on my cell phone and on my iPad to absorb the EMF radiation. The plants in my house are based upon EMF radiation and absorbing that and purifying the air. So they even have, a purpose. I sunbathe. It's all these different things that I do that's associated with health, because when I came here, I decided that's what I wanted to focus on. It makes sense in the natural sense, because when I'm at a family reunion on my father's side, I'm looking around, I don't see hardly any 70-year-olds, right? Let alone 80, 90 on up. My grandfather came to me through a medium saying, hey, I never ate like you did, but you know what? Keep up a good work. So this is why this is my thing, right? Now, for the majority of my life, I ate as bad as anybody who I've ever met, right? I never was a smoker, never was a drinker, but food was my drug. I say it all the time. McDonald's was my thing. You know what I'm saying? Fast food in general, but specifically McDonald's. That all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickle, onion on a regular bun, though. I ain't really do the Big Macs after the McDoubles came out, right? I'm like, let me get that extra patty without the bread. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? But I digress. So moderation, right? The definition of moderation comes through the Holy Odu Torah Irete in the Sacred Ifa Oracle, which was written by my Bagba, which is our Aluo's Aluo. Gives you the definition of moderation. Now, like Oseun said, though, this doesn't matter to people who have the belief that if that ain't your Odu, it don't matter, which I think is Not the correct way to look at it, but there where we have the problem because we can't have a discussion apples to apples if you're like, nah, that's not my Odu. Just like if I'm a Muslim and you're a Christian, we can't really have that conversation because we talking out this different book. So let me tell you what the Odu Autor Irete says
Come on with it.
about moderation. It says, Autor Irete, brace up yourself again. If you are born, try to bring forth yourself again. Autor Irete, Amuwan, Amuwan. He who knows moderation will never fall into disgrace. I say, who knows moderation? Arumala says, he who is working. I say, who knows moderation? Arumala says, he who will not squander his money. I say, who knows moderation? Arumala says, he who will not steal. I say, who knows moderation? Arumala says, he who does not owe debts. I say, who knows moderation? Arumala says, one who never drinks alcohol. Let me stop there. Remember when I said you don't know what excessive is? If you don't have a basic understanding of what we're supposed to do and where we're supposed to be. Alcohol is one of the biggest poisons known to man. I don't know how you consume a poison in moderation, but I digress. One who never drinks alcohol. One who never breaks an oath with friends. Autor Irete, one who wakes up very early in the morning and meditates within himself because of activities. Among the thorns and thistles, the young palm frond will shoot out. Jaworo will never use up all his money. Jakoje will never be a doctor. If Isan owes a great deal of money, he will pay the debt. Amuwan is the Amiso, one who has a good sense of what is right. Then it goes on to talk about what the sacrifice is. That's what moderation means. There's some never in moderation. There's some always in the definition of moderation. People use the word moderation like, if I drink a gallon of gin and I drink a gallon of water, that's moderation.
It's the middle path.
That's the middle path. You know what I'm saying? That's how people use the term moderation. I disagree with that. The Holy Odu disagrees with that.
And I think for me, that's enough. Like, as we talked about when we did our episode on abortion, and when we talked about us not allowing the system that we claim to follow to guide our behavior. Mm-hmm. We are not allowing Ifa to guide our behavior. We have lost discipline. We've lost the discipline that our ancestors had. We've lost the fortitude that our ancestors had and the courage that our ancestors had. The Odu Ifa is explicit in what moderation is. The Odu Ifa is explicit on what it takes to have good character, what it takes to attain a good position, what it takes to become this Omoluabe, or this true human being. The Odu Ifa is explicit about these things. So how we get to the point of believing that what you just read only applies to the person that has that Odu is beyond me. Baba Karenga, who wrote the Odu Ifa, his ethical teachings, and I got it right here just in case y'all want to know what it is, but he did a great job of explaining that there's this underlying philosophy inside of the Odu Ifa, that there's this underlying ethical manuscript within the Odu Ifa that is for us all, that's for all of us who claim to follow the spiritual system of Orunmila. There's an ethical practice inside of it, and those ethical teachings are not just in your Odu. So then that begs the question, because you mentioned something about spirituality, and so are we really spiritual? Are we really following a spiritual tradition, or are we attaching ourselves to something African as a display of resistance? Is that something that we're doing? Because if that's what we're doing, it serves no purpose, because you are just a Christian by another name. You are a Christian by another name. If that's the only reason that we're doing it, is to attach ourselves to, or to be able to perform this magic that we've seen perform, um, there's a fakeness to that, to me, if that's the only reason that we're doing it. So are we spiritual? That's my question to you, Fafore. Are we truly spiritual?
So one thing I want to say before I get into that, there was something I came across, and I was reading, and it said that practicing the tradition of your ancestors is an act of rebellion, right? So I'm good with that.
I saw that. But I'm saying the only reason.
Right. I'm about to get to that. But my thing is that, though, if that's what it is, then just say that's what it is. Cool. No harm, no foul, right? Cool. Just whatever it's going to be, stand on that. Are we spiritual? Are we truly spiritual? Absolutely not. And this is why I say that. In the Bible, I think it's Luke, if I'm not mistaken. It talks about, huh?
You're a biblical scholar.
Hey,
That boy
I do a little something.
I think it's in Luke.
I think it's in Luke. You know what I'm saying? Hey, like the young people say, man, I'm bringing receipts today. We bringing receipts today. So
Right.
if you're gonna argue with somebody else. No.
Right.
But it says that you know a tree by its own fruit. Mm-hmm. So when I look at the religious community and I look at the spiritual community, the fruit looks the same. Mm. The fruit tastes the same. So to me, that must mean it's the same fruit. Now, I remember, and you will remember this because you was there. Years ago, we at the compound, right? This was before I was our Fafore and you was our Oseun. We having a conversation. And it's just the fellas, right? We over there having a conversation. There's a lot going on. It's a lot of people at the compound, but a couple of the fellas we broke off and we having a conversation. And I say, when you look at us, and I specifically said Christians, and I always use Christians because that's my experience. I grew up knowing one Muslim. I met my second Muslim when I was 18. You know what I'm saying? So that's just, I don't talk about things that aren't in my frame of reference. So I said that if you look at us and you look at the Christians, there's no difference. Like, we look exactly the same. And there was somebody in particular that was in the conversation that said, I disagree wholeheartedly. A couple of months ago, I'm chopping it up with my boy. And he said, hey, do you remember that conversation we had when you said that you can't tell the difference between us and Christians? And I'm like, yeah. He was like, when you said that, I disagree with you. He said, man, but I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And you were 100% right. What do I mean there's no difference between us and Christians? Well, I think like Oseun was saying, we got to a point where the teachings of Christianity just wasn't getting it anymore. And I don't really think it's the true teachings of Christianity. It was just more the church culture and was being taught in the church. I don't have any qualms with the Bible at all, right? But the Bible isn't taught, right? There's a culture that's taught. So what happened was we got fed up for whatever reason that we got fed up, and then we left and we found Ifa. And most of us probably got wowed by divination. Because if you go back and you listen to, or if you've watched, all of the majority of our episodes, when we talk about people and their spiritual journey, divination seems to be always that point that changes things. Mm-hmm. Divination is that thing that hooks us in and pulls us in, right? So we fell in love with divination. We like, oh, this Orisha thing is kind of cool. I'm feeling this concept. Oh, this whole thing about, it's all about me. Spiritual journey is a solo thing. And it's all about me and my healing, this, that, and the other. We got pulled in to that. And we jumped on the whole Ifa or voodoo or whatever spiritual system bandwagon. And then we went right into initiating ceremonies and initiations. And we said to hell with building a culture. So now we sit here all these years later, and we have divination, some things on the fringes like, Oseun is beauty and, Shango is masculinity, that type of thing. And then we have church culture because we didn't have a culture. So we just brought in what we knew from the church because a lot of us came from the church. That's why we're the same. So those old women that's always judging, that's always critical, we got them in E5. We got them in E5. A lot of them are priests, but we got them in E5. That church gossip that go on, yeah, I know it's keep your eyes on your own mat. And we talk about not gossiping, but we got that by the pound in E5. Nobody can judge me but God in the church. We brought that with us, because it talks about not being judgmental. We threw that out the door. We judgmental as hell. The pastor, the deacon that don't think they should stink, we got that in E5. The pastor that that's supposed to be the shepherd of the people came right onto E5, and we became priests and we became chiefs. And instead of being on the same level as the people, because the people are who we are here to serve, we have exalted ourselves above the people. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same dogma. It's the same lack of study. And I'm gonna tell you what makes African spirituality attractive or more attractive than Christianity. Because it's just this belief that African spirituality, it's a buffet. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. Just pick a little bit of that. You could pick a little bit of this. Christianity comes across as a little too strict. African spirituality, it ain't no rules. It's feed the Orishas sometimes, and even less than the Orishas, I can feed the ancestors, Airy Blue Moon. And I'm good. I'm gonna hit up a Bembe. I'm gonna go to all of them. I'm good. Like it's whatever I want. And I don't know how that got promoted and how that came up, but that is how we operate in spirituality. And the moment you tell somebody, hey, we supposed to be Oh, that D word come back again. Oh, now you being too dogmatic. You being too rigid. You know, everything in moderation. But then when you start being hyperbolic, like, can you smoke crack in moderation? Oh, see, now you just going way out the window. Hey, everything is everything. Go ahead, brother. What you got?
Man, so just to answer the question, I would agree with you and say no. Usually when I think about words like spirituality, before even going into the etymology of those words, I like to juxtapose that word to something that we are already familiar with, like religion. So when I was in prison, I had a lot of time to sit still and read. And for the life of me, before we started this episode, I was trying to think of the book that I was reading. And for the life of me, I can't think of the book that I was reading. But anyway, in the book, he was talking about the concept of nothingness in the beginning. Talking about nothingness. And this is the way he explained nothingness is why I like to juxtapose words first, is the way that he talked about the concept of nothingness. He basically said that nothingness doesn't mean empty. That nothing means no thing. And to have a thing, to be able to be discriminatory and say that that's a thing, it has to be differentiated from something else first. So in the beginning, when only the primal energy that we call God or that we call the source existed, nothing existed. No thing existed because there was nothing to differentiate from. There was only one homogeneous thing that existed, but it wasn't empty. It wasn't empty. So I like to juxtapose spirituality against religion. Now, I think most of us know that etymologically, the term religion means to bind back or to bind again or to rebind. And that's alluding to the fact that we've been separated from something, that we've been separated from something and that we have to be rebound back to it. And because religion is about God, or it's supposed to be about God, what we've separated from or become separated from is God. We talk about the story in the book of Genesis where you have the great fall of man. And since then, we have been practicing religions to make an attempt to rebind ourselves back to God. Spirituality it comes at it from another angle. And it basically says that you have never been separate from God. You can never be separate from God. It's about remembering that we are not separate from God. And that involves an introspection. That involves going within. That involves meditation and prayer and divination and ritual. It involves all of those different things. So spirituality, are we spiritual? No, because we still, in our actions at least, we still see ourselves as separate from God, as separate from nature, and that there are things that we have to do to rebind ourselves back to God. Or you are on the opposite end of that spectrum and you feel that since you can't be separate from God, that there's nothing that you have to do to stay connected to God, that there's nothing that you have to do. The loss of ethics and the loss of morals in Ifa, I don't know where that came from. And I'm relatively new. We are relatively new to the tradition, but I'm not new to metaphysics and the esoteric and whatever else you want to call it. I'm not new to that, or at least putting my hand at making an attempt to study those type of things. I'm not new to that. There are definitely morals and ethics that we must follow in Ifa to be spiritual. There are some things that we have to do. There are some things that we have to do. Now we can get into, you'll hear a lot of people talk about spirit means the breath. Spirit has always meant breath. And you get into the etymology of spirit or spiritual, and you can see the root words of respiration and things like that in spiritual. You can see the term ritual in spiritual. So I guess etymologically, you could come to the conclusion that spiritual means the ritual of the breath, or ritual involving the breath. And I think this is again where kind of knowing the language of Ifa is beneficial, because we have this concept in Ifa called Emi, and we say that that's the breath, and it is. We say that's the breath, and it is. But spirituality doesn't refer to the breath, in at least as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't apply to the breath. It applies to what I would call the breather, or what I've seen as the breather. What I mean by that is the breath, Emi, is the physical manifestation of something that is inside of you, which Ifa calls Ami. And this is the breath of life that Olodumare gave to you before your incarnation here. That part is the spirit, not the breath. This breath is the manifestation. That part is, that lets us know that what Olodumare gave to you is still there.
Right.
So
And that's why
spirit.
in certain things like Hinduism and Buddhism, where they say that until that happens, you're not alive. So if they were pro-abortion, I can receive that, because they don't look at you as an actual living thing until you take that first breath.
So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about that. And because I disagree with that, right? And the reason that we've come to that conclusion is because we think about the physical breath. That's why, because we think about the physical breath. But the Odu Ifa says that Olodumare gives you your breath of life while still in the spirit realm. That's when you become a living being, is still in the spirit realm. You become a living being when Olodumare gives you the breath of life. You don't need to breathe in the spirit realm. You don't need lungs in the spirit realm. So obviously there's something else that the Odu Ifa is trying to get us to understand, that this breath of life is this spark that animates the body. It's a spark that animates the body and prepares it for its physical journey here. The breath, our first breath, is the physical manifestation of that which Olodumare gave you is still there, that is present, that it's working, that it's animating. That's so, to say that something is alive once it takes its first breath could make you pro-abortion. That could make you pro-abortion.
If that, but I preface it by, if that is the foundation of your spiritual belief, I'm saying
Right.
I could accept it. I didn't
Right.
say whether I agree with it or not, because
Right.
that's not my spiritual system. But I'm saying, if that's your spiritual system, okay, cool. I don't know how your spiritual system are other things, or your foundation is other things, and you have the argument. But I'm saying in that instance, I understand the argument.
Right. Yeah. Because I think we made an attempt to help people understand that what we think, that we're not trying to palm it off on you, that this is just what I think. I personally, if you had 75 abortions, I wouldn't look at you any different. What I'm saying is that if we claim to believe in a spiritual system that seems to be anti-abortion, how can you claim to practice that and at the same time say you're pro-abortion? That's my thing. Is the wishy-washy? Is the, like Jesus said, it's better to be on one side or the other. It's better to be good or evil than to be lukewarm. Pick a side. Pick a side.
And that's my thing. And again, we're not judging
Right.
for you to be on that side, because I'm a priest. And I'm lukewarm on a couple of things. Listen, I'm going to shoot it to you straight.
Right.
I'm going to shoot it to you straight. It's a couple of things I'm lukewarm on, right? But it's lukewarm from the standpoint of, and I'm not gonna ever lie. I'm gonna keep it 100. I know this is what Ephi says, and I stand on what Ephi said. Just today, in the physical,
Right.
Avo Fafore is with that 1,000%. Jimmy just not doing that today.
Right. Not today, huh?
Not today.
Right. And I can respect that.
Right. Jimmy
Yeah.
got some things that he's still working on in a couple of areas where I'm like, I know that's what the case is, but today I can't physically move myself in that space. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to lie and I'm not going to tell you that's cool. I'm not. Somebody might see me, I gave that up for good in 2023. Last year, I said it many times. I'll say it again. I had my worst year veganism last year. I didn't eat meat or dairy, anything like that. But I had me some more Beyond burgers and fries that I should have had. Now, I never tell people, oh man, it's cool if you do it every now and again. Because no, that ain't the truth. Poison is poison is poison. Right. No amount of poison is cool. Right? I didn't game myself like, hey, because I can fast, because I go through these detoxes, because I got a cabinet this big with herbs, I'm gonna be all right. Right. Now I know in real life, not necessarily, but it's a risk that I've decided that I can take. Now I know that's a little bit of bullshit wrapped up in there too. Right? Right. But I'm gonna keep it a buck though. Yeah. Right? I'm not gonna ever do something just because I'm just completely ignoring the information. That ain't me. I'm not married to no thing, no idea, no ideology, none of that. As soon as I get some information, I'm a shift. If somebody told me today, like, man, I feel like in 10 years, you ain't gonna practice E5, you gonna practice this. I'm not gonna argue with that person. My whole life been changed. They could be on to something, right? Mm-hmm. If I get some more information to say, yo, this ain't, it's some better thing, you need to move over here, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about it is we gotta quit lying to ourselves.
And to other people.
That part.
And to other people to feed our own lie, to feed our own justification to going against the grain, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. See, you got the old dude like Ogunda Bere and Agbe Ogunda, for instance, that talks about telling these lies because you gotta keep telling more lies, like Oseun said, to keep feeding it. And then you're gonna get to a point where you done forgot what the hell the truth is.
Right. And now the lie is the truth, huh?
Right.
Yeah, it gotta be the truth because nothing else exists. You can't remember anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So my whole thing is just allowing the system to guide the way that we behave. That's what EFI is supposed to be, right? We say that it's not a religion. It's a way of seeing the world. It's a way of seeing the world, and it's a way of teaching us how to be in the world if we are going to see the world through this lens. If we're going to look at the world through the lens of Ifa, Ifa tells us that there's a specific way that we should behave. Not just in your Odu, but that there's an underlying ethical manuscript within the Odu Ifa that pertains to us all. This is how you attain good character. What is good character? What is gentle character? What is an omoluabi? What is at the end of the Odu that you read? It says something about doing things right. What does that mean? What does right look like from the perspective of Ifa? Not from a judgmental standpoint, but from the standpoint of Ifa, what does right look like? What does right mean?
Right. You know what another thing too that gets me is our use of the word judgmental. Like, how are you in a position to help your brother? if every time you say left and the other person says right, they being judgmental.
Right. Mm.
You know, I thank God every day. Well, maybe not every day. A lot of days. I thank my Ori, my ancestors, and all the benevolent forces for blessing me with my brother here. Because when I tell you he don't let me color outside the lines a little bit, he gonna be like, whoa, hey, hold on. And sometimes when he see, y'all see Oseun on the screen. And then there's people who have seen him out and about, right? You getting owl Oseun, right? You're getting the rough ashlar that has the edges been smooth, and you see the perfect ashlar, right? I know Sam.
Right.
I know Sam that went to prison. I know why Sam went to prison. I know where Sam's from, right? So he don't be like, hey, my brother, I just want to let you know that first and foremost that I love you, and I hope that you take these words that I give you in the spirit in which I'm giving. It's man, what the hell you mean?
Right.
No, man, you tripping because you got to be. It be that, right? It be that, and I am so grateful for those exchanges because even if and when in them exchanges I'm right, I still learn some. I still learn that I might be right in this instance, but there's some areas for improvement, if nothing else.
Mm.
And then I've learned I've been completely, you know what I'm saying, out of line. So yeah, I gotta tweak that all the way through. I'm grateful for having. I couldn't imagine walking through this space without him and just a few other people who gonna give me that. Listen, I ain't about to do all the sweet talking because you already know the vibes. But look, this is what it is. But you got people out there that you can't. Nobody can say anything to them, and nobody does say anything to them because you're gonna hide behind the whole thing of being judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, your ass is as judgmental as they come.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem. I think what the problem is you actually see yourself because you know how you are.
We project.
So exactly, you projecting. See, thank you for giving me them ACT words. You projecting, right? So check yourself, man. We got to come off of that, man, because there's no growth and evolution. If we are to believe that a lot of the experiences that we are having with people on this earthly realm are people that we had a relationship with in heaven, then they definitely came here to check you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not pushing you, then what they here for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think the same thing about you, because I got to be able to argue with you. I have to, even if for no other reason than to understand why you think the way you think. I have to be able to argue with you, and I only use the word argue because that's the term that other people use. I remember once you and I was having a conversation. I can't remember if it was in person or if it was over a chat that we were having or whatever. And somebody said, they basically said that you and I were arguing with each other. Now, from our perspective, we weren't arguing with each other. And more than likely, in the end, we agreed with one another. And we knew we agreed with one another, but we were still putting things forward to just push back just to gain perspective. Those are the type of people that I need in my life. I need somebody that I can push back against because I may not have the words in my mind to ask you a question, but I may have the words in my mind to make a statement. You know what I'm saying? I may be able to tell you what I think I know, what I believe, or what I've come to know. thus far. And if you can show me something else, I'm malleable, man. Like you say, I'm not married to anything. Present me with something to my satisfaction, and I'm ready to shift. I'm ready to move. I'm not set in stone. I'm not I'm ready to go. I'm
Right.
ready to move, man. I sleep like a fireman, man. I'm ready to go. When the bell ring, I'm ready to go, man. Just give me some information, present it to me in a way that satisfies me, and I'm ready to shift, man. I'm ready to go. For
Right.
sure.
Actually, absolutely. I'm a Virgo sun. You know what I'm saying? That's a mutable sign. I'm ready to bend and move as the information is presented. But like he was saying, it got to a point where we had to stop having conversations around other people
Mhm.
because they didn't know how close they was about to get jumped because they jumping on one side or the other. And we like, hold on, first of all, this is my brother. Now, you sit still.
Right.
We family. Like we, you know what I'm saying? This is our process.
Right.
Right? Like you sit back. But what I did realize though is that a lot of people don't have the person. And Baba said, shoosh, this might have been over a year ago. When Baba was talking the whole thing about having an accountability partner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't gotta get one of them. Like that was already established.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But when I would see people react to how we do, I would see like, oh, you ain't got no person. Like you ain't got nobody to tell you that you tripping. But
Mm-hmm.
you know who supported it though? Our Luo.
And Awola Chris. Awola Chris was one of the first people who eventually came around and was like, you know what, man? I see what y'all got, man. Y'all keep doing what y'all doing. So shout out to Awola Chris, man. Yeah, because he came
Yes.
through us and told us that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Our Chris. So we got a group chat with the three of us. And
Right.
he'll throw something in and we just all go in. You know what I'm saying? But I love people like that. Because again, man, that's how we grow and move forward. So before we land this plane, you got a couple of things that come to mind where you like, it's kind of, whether it's taught or it's like a widely held belief or something like that, where you just like, that ain't it, that you want to address so people can comment, if they agree or disagree, or if nothing more, go back and kind of think about your way of approaching this thing, and then maybe come back and comment.
Right. One of the main things is the thing about only the things in your Odu pertaining to you.
Right.
I remember asking a question about the specific Odu. I think it's Irete Oyeku, or either the Ibeji Oyeku Irete. I'm almost positive it's Irete Oyeku. And there's a story in there where a sacrifice is prescribed and the client is told not to kill anything unless you want to die yourself.
Mm.
The Odu Ifa says not to kill anything unless you want to die yourself. Now we know that we all die, but in this case, the client was being sought after by death.
Mm.
And the Babalawo was telling him that if you don't want to die yourself in this case, then go home and don't kill anything anymore. Now, at the very least, what I think about that particular Odu is that we as human beings don't have the authority to kill anything. Now, this is where it's going to kind of get sticky, right? But I'm going to say it anyway because this is what I think. That we don't have the authority to kill anything. That it is only through divination and through the Orisha that we are given the authority to kill anything. Now, there are going to be some people that would say, because this is the first thing that came to my mind, and this is me thinking to myself, this is me talking to myself after I thought that, was that, well, in the Bible, God told the Israelites to go and kill all these men, women, children, animals,
Mm-hmm.
and all of these things. So what's the difference between those two things. Technically nothing. Technically nothing. When you believe that God is commanding you or telling you to do something, and that's the thing that you do, I don't know. I don't know if I can fault you for that unless it's something. I don't know. I don't know if I can all the way fault you for that. That's something that I'm working with. I'm going back and forth with by myself. But those types of things, I believe that that is one of the ethical principles that underlies the philosophy of Ifa, is that at the very least, even if you don't have the Odu Irete Oyeku, at the very least, we don't have the authority to kill anything. Going further than that, that means that we should not be a part of a market that that lends to anything being killed without sanction from Ifa or the Orisha.
Mm-hmm.
And this again goes back to the plant-based thing, not so much about the health that I know that you're more concerned with, but more about building up karma. Building up karma and not killing anything. You know, Pythagoras, when it's the Rosicrucians taught that Pythagoras went to Egypt and learned at the feet of the priests in Egypt for about 20 years. And that when he was given permission to go back to his homeland and teach those principles, building his own school. In that school, he also taught at least vegetarianism on the basis that if we continue to kill those species below us, that we will continue to kill ourselves. So it seems that all of the traditions, the original traditions that came out of Africa, all taught at least vegetarianism and veganism. You can see Pharaoh Akhenaten in one of the steels offering bread to the sun, not meat, but bread to the sun. So it's those type of things. That one thing that the ethics of one particular Odu doesn't apply to you if that's not your Odu. That's something that I disagree with.
Yeah.
What about you? What about you? What's one thing that you feel like that's either taught, not taught, whatever that you disagree with that people may find controversial?
Well, just quick comment on what you just said. I'm 50-50 with the health and being good stewards of the earth and me being plant-based.
I know you are.
I only speak the health part is because I figured I would play on people's selfishness and people's vanity,
right,
to, you know, be the reason why they go that route, as opposed to it's causing the destruction of the planet. The powers that be know that. That's why you got all of these mock meats and stuff coming out, right? Because they understand that this isn't sustainable, because this was never meant to be what we do. The thing that we do that's dogmatic that gets me is we talk about the Orishas like they're people. That's the thing where I'm like, you know, I wish we get a better understanding on that. You know, you hear people say things like, you know, I'm having this issue or I'm having this issue because Shango is mad at me. Shango does not have the capacity to be mad at you. The Orisha is a force of nature. Now, what the issue is, why you think Shango is mad at you, is maybe because you lack the faith and courage to do what it is that you need to do. Maybe the issue is not Oshun is mad at you, is that you just, there's no fun, there's no joy, there's no sweetness in your life. You get that right, then you won't have certain issues. But Oshun isn't a human, right? Doesn't have the ability to get mad at you. You know, these things are, like I said, forces of nature. They are energies. These same energies reside within you. That's why we have the ability to manipulate these things. because it's something that is within us that we're manipulating, not something that's external to us.
Mm.
So when we understand it from that level, then we're able to actually work with these things better. Because if you're running around thinking that Ogun is mad at you, you're not gonna get anywhere,
Mm.
right? So, that's one of the things that I wish that, or that I hope people study and people are able to apply those teachings and understand. If you agree or disagree, leave a comment. If you think Ogun gets mad at people, then uh, make a comment, tell us that, and then tell us why.
Right.
Why do you believe that? And if you got an Odu, that's even better. But if not, just whatever it is you have, whatever information you have, even if that's because my Luo told me so or my godmother told me so, then say that. Again, this isn't about judging one another. This isn't about ridiculing one another. It's about steel sharpening steel, and all of us getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I wanted to do, because you brought up the good position multiple times, I actually wanted to read that Odu
I got
from
it
the
right
Sacred
here.
Ifa Oracle.
You
Oh, well,
know,
go ahead.
I turned it to this right before we started. See, man, boy, my Ori be on point sometimes, man. Sometimes,
It
I
do. Your
when
Ori
I
always be on point.
but sometimes I don't listen. Sometimes I'm hard headed, and prison is full of people that say, "Man, if I'd have just followed my first mind." So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I try to follow my first mind. But yeah, something told me to turn to this. But if you got it, you can read it though, unless you want me to read it.
Go ahead.
It says, "Let's do things with joy. Those who wish to go may go. Those who wish to return may return. Definitely, human beings have been chosen to bring good fortune to the world. Omniscience, the diviner of Orunmila, divine Ifa for Orunmila, who was told that human beings would come and ask him a particular question. He was advised to offer a sacrifice of fish and 200 grains of cornmeal. Orunmila heeded the advice and performed the sacrifice. One day, all kinds of people, including robbers and other evildoers, gathered themselves together and went to Orunmila to complain that they were tired of going back and forth to earth, Orunmila. Please allow us to take refuge in heaven. Orunmila said that they could not avoid going to and coming back from the earth until they had attained the good position that Oduduwa had ordained for every individual. Only then could they reside in heaven. They asked, "What is the good position?" Orunmila asked them to confess their ignorance. They said, "We are ignorant and would like to be given knowledge by Olodumare." Orunmila said, "The good position is the world, a world in which there will be full knowledge of all things, joy everywhere, life without anxiety or fear of enemies, attack from snakes or other dangerous animals, without fear of death, disease, litigation, losses, wizards, witches, or Eshu, danger of accidents from water and fire, without the fear of misery or poverty because of your inner power, good character, and wisdom. When you refrain from stealing because of the hardship the owner suffers at the disgrace with which this behavior is treated in the presence of Oduduwa and other good spirits in heaven, who are always friendly and often wish us well. These forces can turn their backs on you and allow you to return to the darkness of the world. Bear in mind that you will not receive any favors, and whatever is stolen will be repaid. All evil acts have their repercussions. Individually, what will be needed to attain the good position is wisdom that can adequately govern the world as a whole, sacrifice or cultivating the habit of doing good to the poor or those who need your help, desire to increase the world's prosperity rather than destroying it. People will continue to go to heaven and return to earth after death until everyone attains the good position. There are a lot of good things in heaven that are still not available on earth and will be obtained in due course. When all the children of Oduduwa are gathered together, those selected to transfer the good things to the world are called Inian, or human beings.
Mm.
Now, there's a lot in this verse. There's a whole lot in this verse that we probably could do another episode on about what it means, what this means for us as a collective, what it means for us as an individual. does anyone cross the finish line first? Or do we all have to attain the good position before we can get off of the wheel of rebirth or reincarnation, metempsychosis, whatever you want to call it? There's a lot in this verse, but the main thing is to understand that there are ethics and morals that must be followed before we can attain the good position. This means that the Odu Ifa is an ethical manual showing us how we're supposed to behave and be while we are here to attain a good position.
And I think that is a perfect place to stop. Think on that, people. Man, we appreciate y'all as always for spending time with us, man. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoy these episodes where it's just the two of us. I enjoy the other ones, obviously, but man, we're just the two of us. We able to go in, able to go back and forth. And man, hopefully y'all learned a lot, man. Those two old dudes speak a mouthful. They talked about in what Oseun just read, pretty much how we've been ending the episodes this season, which is, man, life is for the living. We all came here to have an experience, no matter what that individual experience happened to be, man. We came here to live that. So live it to the fullest, have the experience. As always, live life out loud and on purpose. Until next time, we love you. Peace.
Peace.